A taxi driver has been found guilty of failing to carry a guide dog accompanying a blind woman in his cab. Shahzad Hussain was prosecuted under equality laws brought in 3 years ago.
The blind woman, Andrea Hope, says she wants other taxi drivers to learn they can't refuse to take guide dogs unless they have a special exemption. The driver, Shahzad Hussain, has told ITV News Central it was all a misunderstanding. Keith Wilkinson reports.
Andrea Hope with her guide dog Zita. She says she was very upset after a taxi driver was called to her home in Birmingham but drove off after learning she wanted to take the dog in the cab. Shahzad Hussain was today found guilty of breaching the Equality Act of 2010 by refusing to take the dog.
I think lessons need to be learned that taxi drivers need to be properly told by the controller or the operator that there is a guide dog, and if the controller isn't saying that, then okay, the taxi driver doesn't need to know there's a guide dog because he can't refuse them unless he is exempt.
The driver in this case was not exempt and so could not refuse. It was Shahzad Hussain's case that he had no idea he was being asked to carry a guide dog. He thought it was a normal dog, he said. He told the magistrates that he was scared of dogs, but he said he never refused to carry guide dogs. He'd carried many over the years. But the magistrates told him he knew he was going to pick up somebody who was blind. They said the case against him was proved. It was a claim he stood by as he left Birmingham Magistrates Court after being fined £120 and told to pay £1,000 in costs.
No, because I don't know that they have a guide dog. Yeah, because I don't know. If I know that they have a guide dog, then I will pick up.
Is it a defence to say I'm scared of dogs?
No, being scared of dogs isn't a defence. The only defence are medical grounds, which is normally that the driver is allergic to animals. Being scared isn't a medical reason for granting a certificate of exemption.
Andrea Hope says other drivers must learn from this, that guide dogs must not be refused access to taxis. Keith Wilkinson, ITV News.
Well, we're joined now by Colin Vince from Guide Dogs for the Blind. Colin, is this an unusual case?
It is, thankfully. It is an unusual case. This isn't a widespread problem in terms of guide dog owners and their guide dogs being denied access to a taxi. So yes, thankfully it is unusual.
And we know, Colin, that there's a lot of sympathy for the woman in this case, but is there any sympathy for the taxi driver? Because he said he was scared of dogs.
Yeah, I mean, guide dogs respect that, and clearly there are cases where people are slightly perhaps frightened of dogs, and we understand that. It's important to stress here that under the Equality Act it is actually illegal to deny a guide dog and their guide dog owner access to a taxi. But really what we recognise here with taxi companies and licensing authorities, this is about awareness and education.
Is there advice really then for taxi drivers if they're in that position and they do realise that the person who's phoned for their service is indeed blind and has a dog? What would your advice be to them then if they're in that position?
Well, I think the advice to taxi drivers would be very clear in that if they don't allow guide dogs and their guide dog owners access, they are breaking the law. Right. Unless of course they have a medical exemption certificate, which clearly then means that they can deny access. Guide dogs are working incredibly hard, as I say, to sort of raise awareness and work closely with taxi companies and licensing authorities to kind of provide sort of education and awareness around this particular issue.
Colin, thank you. Thanks. Now,